Side Murado as well, our team leader.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone.
Good job. I hope it doesn't fall up during the meeting.
Another casualty.
Oh, yeah, another injury for Warren.
Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second. Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the submission of minutes, and we have the town council special meeting February 1st, the town council special meeting February 15th, and the town council meeting of March 1st, 2023.
Motion to approve?
Second. Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is C1. This is ordinance 2023-4, Chapter 17 to Article 2 of the alcoholic beverage establishments. And this is to decrease the number of the Class B limited licenses from 6 to 5. This is second reading.
Motion to approve it.
Second?
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim, that this constitutes second reading to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is C2. This is ordinance 2023-5, Chapter 25 to street sidewalks and other public places. And this is for the seasonal use of the public streets for outdoor dining by business establishments. This is second reading. You'll also note that there was a received at meeting letter of concern from Anton Miranda and James Dumas from Jesse James Antiques.
Mr. Chairman, I ask if we could combine C2 and H2, since they're very similar topics.
I'll take that as a motion. Is there a second? Motion made by Tim, seconded by Mary to combine. You said C2 and H2. Am I correct?
Correct.
Let me just
Yep,
mark that
it
off,
should
please.
be the outside dining. Yep, outside dining. Yep.
Great. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. C2. Council? I'm gonna actually ask, maybe, is there any discussion on this, or is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the second reading for adoption.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Mary to adopt. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. Under discussion, one small revision that I'm going to ask you to make. If you look at the first page of the ordinance, paragraph C, subparagraph 3, it says a line drawing or plot plan showing the parking area, etc. I'd like you to insert after the word plot plan, stamped by a licensed professional. So this is based upon feedback from our building official, Steve Greenleaf, in terms of what he had to deal with in the past. It's very difficult when you're doing this type of operation on a public street to have someone come in with a handwritten drawing. And given the public safety aspects of putting tables out on a street, where they're set, where the barriers are going to be placed, how ingress and egress is going to be allowed, it's critical that a professional actually prepares that plan and submits it with the application. So that's why I'm recommending that you do that. Along those same lines, the application form itself, which sets forth all the requirements that must be met in order to use a public street for dining, has a section on it about attaching a plan, and I'm recommending the same change or edit. Attach a plan by a licensed professional. And that might be an engineer, it might be an architect, it might be a surveyor, as long as it's a licensed professional. That's what the key issue is. A couple other things I'd like to point out, if I may. The ordinance obviously applies to dining on public streets. This does not impact the sidewalks. We have a sidewalk ordinance, and that's where it is. This does not impact what small business owners do on their own property, meaning if they have a parking lot adjacent to their property and they want to expand the dining into the parking lot, this is not going to impact that. In fact, along those lines, the General Assembly has approved a bill extending the moratorium on enforcement of zoning and other regulations to February of 2024. That bill is now on the governor's desk, and my guess is it is going to be signed. So, but again, that would deal with that. A couple of other items I think it's important to note for the public to understand is that under both the General Assembly legislation and this ordinance, the assumption is that the number of diners remains the same. So during the pandemic, the idea was, let's say you could fit 50 individuals inside your restaurant, but because of the pandemic, you had to spread them out so they weren't on top of one another. You couldn't go from 50 to 100. You simply took that 50 and spread them out. So the same thing applies here. If you have room for 50 inside your restaurant and you want to move 10 tables out into the street, you're still limited to 50 under the rules and regulations. You could increase to 60 or a different number, but in order to do that, you need to go back and make sure you're compliant with things like the number of parking spaces, the number of restrooms, et cetera, et cetera. So just to be clear, we're not talking about increasing the numbers. If you want to do that, you're going to be subject to all these other requirements. And it goes without saying, ADA requirements must be complied with. The guidelines that you have here, which specify how you set up the barriers and what type of barriers to use that separate the diners from the motoring public, et cetera. This was all prepared for us by Park Corporation. It's one of the best I've seen, to be honest with you, in terms of the guidelines. Again, these guidelines are incorporated. If you adopt this ordinance, they will become part of the ordinance. So, Steve, is there anything that you think I left out that you want to mention at this point, just in terms of giving the public transparency on what this will do?
No, I think you covered it, Mike.
Thank you. And if the council has any questions for me or Steve.
Mary does, go ahead.
I have a question. I had asked Andy this as well, and it's on section D, I think it is,
The last
on
sentence.
the 4th of July committee
Yes.
reference. And
Yes.
I haven't been able to really get clarification. Outside that, we give them the okay to like deal with vendors that day. I'm a little bothered by the fact that we would be handing over like restaurant and the other business establishments to them. Is that for the whole day? Is it just for the parade time? I mean, I don't
Sure.
understand this.
Maybe I can help you. At some point, the council adopted an amendment to its outside dining establishment ordinance, use of the sidewalks, et cetera. At the time, we weren't using streets. It was clearly the use of sidewalks. And the council, and there is an ordinance in place, it's 2510, subsection D, that basically says that the Bristol 4th of July committee has the right to license vendors on that day, and it's for the entire day.
But how are restaurants that we're licensing vendors all of a sudden? Because even though, like, I can understand if it was like on the parade route, but you're talking about restaurants that aren't even on the parade route.
And so if we're just trying to be consistent with what it already was on the books. If you want to eliminate that sentence, you certainly can.
I think we should.
I think we
I
should.
agree with you
I just
100%.
don't understand like the
Fine.
whole thing. We need to like revisit that. Like I totally understand it in certain cases,
Me too.
but to sort of hand over to restaurants where, like, so a lot of these restaurants in the past have opened up after the parade. I don't know if they open up during the parade, but they've opened up in the afternoon,
Sure they do.
and so would this 4th of July committee have the right to say, well, you can't open?
So all you need to do is amend the ordinance again by removing the last sentence in section D,
Starting with approval, am I correct?
starting with approval to maintain the outdoor dining area during the day of the President's 4th of July celebration.
I would move that we remove that sentence.
Yeah, I'll amend my motion.
Mary, you seconded that, I believe.
I second the motion. Is it amendment or are we just
So,
gonna?
Tim
do it all
just
in one?
amended. Why don't we get a second on the amendment? How's that?
Yeah. I just
Amending my
did.
motion to
Perfect.
remove that. And then, Mike, just for it's a proper motion, you asked for a licensed professional as well to be added. Do I need to also include that in my motion?
Well, I thought it was when you made your, well, if you had it,
Just-
we should add that to section C3. We're going to say a line drawing or plot plan stamped by a licensed professional.
So I amend my motion. So,
Is there a second on that, Mary? Thank you.
Great.
So continue discussion. So I'll take 2 seconds here. I'm not going to be voting for this. I've been very clear, not because I don't support the restaurants. If this passes, which it really feels like it's going to, I'll continue to support. I think we've had a lot of focus with the restaurants on State Street. I frequent them now with my family and by myself, and I'll continue to frequent them. I think they're great establishments, but I don't believe that exclusive use of public land should be based on your ability to pay. It's not a reflection of the businesses. It's a request to be able to use this. This is not a negative connotation on the business, but I don't believe it should be exclusive use of anyone. And I don't believe that it should be based off your ability to pay. I also don't believe that we have enough parking spaces. And I believe there's 19 there. And this council, in fact, I think it's this council voted to purchase the parking lot on State Street for over $400,000 to make available more parking spaces and to summarily, and we're talking about State Street, but it's all over the town, but the focus has definitely been on State Street. We're summarily getting rid of 19 spaces for the summer. And I think there's additional changes happening. We have a new marina and we really don't understand the true effects of that. We'll know this year, I think, more. There's other businesses that are opening up. What used to be Guillory's is probably going to open at some point, and that's going to affect parking down there. We have Robin Rugg, and how is that going to affect? Just the parking has been addressed for the residents there, but what about visitors and just more traffic down there? So at the end of the day, my objection is primarily because I believe this belongs to the public. I understand it's parking spaces. I also voted in favor of moving forward with the engineering study, because if this is going to move forward, it should be done right. And I believe that the engineering study helps us do that correctly. I reached out to the solicitor today and asked for next steps. So if this council majority says, let's move forward on this, then the next step, and Mary actually asked this question too, the next step is that a business would then come in front of this council and ask for, I'm going to call it a license or a permit license to use public land, particularly in front of their business, right? If approved by this council, then it would take that next step and then ultimately be signed off by Steve Greenleaf, our building inspector. Why? Because it makes sure it's compliant with the safety, to make sure it's compliant with ADA, such and so forth. So that would be kind of where it goes from here. So I want to be very clear one more time. Obviously, I support the businesses, we all do, but we can do that, and I can do that personally and not support this for the reasons that I've already expressed. I see concerns coming up. I recall this council being begged by the businesses 7 years ago, 8 years ago, to continue with the lease on Thames Street because it was going to negatively affect their businesses by not having it open. I think this is exactly the same thing. So I really do wish everyone well. I know you can hear it in the tone and my tone and the words that I'm using. I just don't support this in the grander scheme of benefiting all, including there are businesses, including one that expressed itself, that I feel like we're playing favorites. And this business and others that have reached out to me have said, yeah, but they get to use it, but I have a business there. And I want my patients, my customers to be able to access just like they do. That's not fair. And I agree with them. I don't think it's fair. But at the end of the day, I don't mean to make villains of anyone. I think this was well thought out to take the next step if this council chooses to go so. I just won't be voting yes. Is there any other discussion?
Just,
I would just like to comment on that. I think we all respect that point of view. It's very densely populated downtown. We have tremendous parking issues. I think we all realize that. And we all want to see all the businesses be successful. The thing is that what we didn't do all those years, like X number of years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, whatever, upon purchasing, is we didn't anticipate a pandemic that would move everything outside, where people have come to like that and want to be, and especially that particular location. I know we have to be fair to every business in town, but that location that overlooks the water, you know, on a hill, it's like a very nice like little area. So I think every town is wrestling with this. Everybody sort of had like carte blanche, if you will, during COVID. And if you look at, you know, like I've seen many articles, some of them I've sent to Tim, you know, whether it's Federal Hill, whether it's the North End in Boston, there's like a lot of places that are re-looking at this, but people have really requested it, and people enjoy it out there, particularly in the spring, I think in the fall, more so than the hot summer. So, I mean, I think the times are a little different, and this is something that would generate business potentially in the downtown area. And I think we want to take advantage of that, at least until which point it doesn't work, you know, but right now it seems to be pretty successful. I know last year it took a long time to get these up and running, and to make sure that there was some cohesion, that it looked good as well as was safe. So the guideline should address that in this ordinance. And, you know, to some degree, it's like a work in progress, hopefully get better every year. But we are, I think, on our way. And we all know that as we look at it, I forgot to look at it the other day in our budget, but you know, there's a substantial amount of money, close to $500,000 that comes in as revenue to restaurants through dining. And we have to really be competitive. Like if we don't do this, then what's the option? People go to another town, or they just say, oh, well, we can't, we're gonna eat inside. Like, you know, I don't know what the answer is. So everybody's out there. We just have to kind of figure that out. So I do appreciate the point that you're making. And I think we all understand that parking situation, particularly as it relates to the limited parking with the Prudence Ferry this year and other things. But, you know, we also need to, it's always, like this business is always a balance for us, right? So.
I echo Councilwoman Perella's statements. Mr. Chairman, I respect your comments and where you're coming from on everything. The way I look at it is it's really a economic driver for our business. It's another reason to come to town. And personally, I think one hand washes the other. Someone will come down for outside dining, they'll enjoy a dinner, but then they'll go to another restaurant in town because they just simply fall in love with the town. Like all of us here tonight, we know this town is beautiful. It's got a lot to give. So I think it's also a work in progress. I think this ordinance is it's a start in the right direction. I'm going to take one case by case, and we'll tweak it and we'll get it there. But I think it's worth trying. I think we've tried in the past and it's been successful, and we're creating a better experience down there that will bring in more revenue to the businesses, bring town more revenue, and I just think it makes a lot of sense at this point to try it.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, the parking issue has already been brought up, and I think it's pretty clear, excuse me, it's pretty clear that we are pretty tight with parking spaces, specifically on State Street. And I see that as an issue. Some of the businesses there have reached out and they are concerned, as they stated that before, the fairness of the access to their business, especially drive in, drive out, when if you're taking away those parking spaces, folks who will be going to the restaurants, obviously most likely will take the closest spots that they can, which eventually eliminates any parking for the local business across the street from the restaurants. So I have a concern. Now, the other thing is, it was stated that in our solicitor that there is no impact on the current business. They use the sidewalks right now. So that being said, I don't think there's a whole lot of change. I know it was stressed that revenue generating, that's a few restaurants there compared to the whole. I just can't picture when Leo's comes before us and says, well, I'd like to take up, 3-4 spots on Union Street, on Church Street. I'm not quite sure how that's going to be dealt with, but I'll be voting against this ordinance. I think the guidelines are very good. It certainly helps, going forward with not just what's being proposed, but for any current restaurants, to make sure it's uniform and we can be proud of what we have. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I support this. I'm going to be very brief in my remarks. I support it. I always like the idea of outdoor dining. I've brought T-ballers out there to Bristol House of Pizza to do an award ceremony after the Little League season. And it was a lot nicer doing it outside than it was inside. And with that being said, I know that there's probably some adjustments that'll have to be made at some point in the future after we've had a time to assess and evaluate what we've done. And so I guess that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody from the public?
Was there any other discussion? If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Rayona Clemens. I live at 33 Elmwood Drive, Bristol.
Welcome.
I am the power of attorney for my son Benjamin Minor, who lives at 73 Gooding Avenue here in Bristol. And Ben is in a wheelchair, as most of you know. I did look at the plan for outdoor dining and I'm a little concerned. Not necessarily with the entire plan. However, there were two things that concerned me. When I'm not sure of the gentleman's name that presented, but it was Par Associates. Is that correct?
And he's here, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was mention.
So be nice.
We all know I'm appreciated. So two things. The first thing is handicap parking spaces. Bristol House of Pizza. Greg does tell his customers not to park in that parking space, and they don't care. There was mention of moving or potentially moving or maybe considering moving the parking places, the handicap parking. Well, that's a problem because when I met with Amy Romero, who is the Assistant U.S. Attorney, on the corner of State and Thames, and we walked that, and Mr. Rivers can attest that we were there, and she was addressing parking places. Amy specifically chose the locations of parking places in addition to others around town, which wasn't even my intent. I did not know that we were lacking, probably because I don't park there because there's a sign that says dock parking only, but we were minus spaces. And the town was eagerly, the town complied, which I thought was phenomenal. However, when you take a space that an assistant U.S. attorney dictated location, that's a problem. My next thing is I did read the plan. And in the plan, it talked about accessibility restrooms for outdoor diners. Please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Well, you can't get into the restaurant in a wheelchair if the building isn't handicap compliant. And that is a violation of Preservation Brief 32. Now, if any business in the town of Bristol, any restaurant, had renovations more than 20% since 1992, is it, Mike?
That sounds right. I'm not sure the exact date, but that sounds
They are
about right.
mandated by law to comply with restroom accommodations. How do you get somebody handicapped into a building that is not ADA compliant? You can't. And in your ordinance, you have that accessibility is to be for those people. There is nothing, and I'm very surprised. You know, talk about how people feel. Well, that's great. You know, everybody has feelings. But at the same time, are you actually considering how somebody has to live? Well, I like being outside. I love being outside. I utilized outdoor dining during COVID. But you have, and I'm going to tell you, it's Bristol's fault. They fell through the cracks in the building department. Stephen, this is not on you, Mr. Greenleaf. There's pre your time. And we have buildings that underwent more than 20% renovation in this town since 1992. I don't know if you're aware what Preservation Brief 32 is, but it's written by National Park Service. And it's the building code for this country. So before you pass any amendment, you might want to consider what you are setting these business owners up for, in addition to the customers that they serve. I find it quite disgusting that you cannot understand, some of you, what it is like to even take care of somebody that is in a wheelchair. Well, I like being outside. Well, you know what? You have 2 legs and you can stand up. You can walk into that bathroom. But I can tell you right now, none of the businesses that are on Lower State Street have a handicap compliant bathroom. Not one. But let's pass an ordinance. I'm disgusted. I'm absolutely disgusted. So you're setting yourself up for a lawsuit because you're in violation of Preservation Brief 32. And you're thinking of moving handicap parking places when parking is an issue. But you and I have 2 legs. What about people that sit in a wheelchair? I don't think you realize how bad this is for handicapped people. So I have to say, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any points of clarity, Mike?
The point of clarity I would make is that in the ordinance before you in subsection C6, it specifically states that outdoor dining must comply with all applicable building codes, health regulations, and DBR regs. So those are enforcement issues for our building official, and this ordinance commands that those be complied with. Now, whether or not a building predated the regulations, or if there was a 20%, that's a whole different issue. But ADA regulations must be complied with under this ordinance.
So to break it down, this ordinance would make the businesses for the outside dining comply with the
They will
ADA,
have to.
have to.
They will
And
have
if
to.
they're not in compliance,
They
this
won't
will
be able to do
too.
it.
So this actually is,
And they have to submit plans, Councilor Sweeney, that shows the building officials that they are in compliance. Because if you look at the application, one of the application numbers shows exactly that. So, or requires, I should say.
okay, thank you. And then Chairman, I was just wondering if John could just
Yeah, of course.
approach.
John, if you could state your name and
Fine.
address for the record, please.
Sure. Good evening. My name is John Shevlin, Park Corporation, 8 Blackstone Valley Place, Lincoln, Rhode Island. The guidelines clearly state in numerous locations that ADA has to be met. As far as any construction, anything that's built, there needs to be ADA accessibility. There's not, that's something that the building official will go ahead and be reviewing, and the town will be reviewing as far as the process to see if those are met in regards to be able to construct that. As far as the plan goes, as far as parking, we did not develop any plan for eliminating parking. That has not been presented as far as what we did. We did take a look at that to see if there wasn't an area where we could go ahead and improve it. I did talk to the ADA Commission, the governor's office, just get an explanation in regards to what's changed over the last, I guess, year or so. And she stated to me as of last week, she said, they did add another spot in the middle. And I talked to her about the number of spaces, based on what they have, they needed to meet based on the total number of probably 2 spaces. They put in a third. She explained to me it's because of the grade of the roadway, they want one in the middle. So that way, anybody who is in a wheelchair or has some kind of, ADA issue, they wouldn't have that far to walk. So we did not formally submit any kind of plan as far as what that needs to be right now. I think that's something that, it's nothing that we would go ahead and go forward with as far as the state, as part of the scope. But, she did offer to, if you want to come down and have her come down and talk further. But I think, like I said, I just said, right now, I just trying to get clarification in regards to the parking layout that was done last year. So,
Okay. So what you're saying, we would go with the old plan for now, and then the new plan would have to be submitted and approved by the state to change those ADA compliant parking spaces and adjust that in just that street,
Right.
but they have to have three.
The three spaces that are in
Correct.
there
Three
right
is a
now,
requirement, which
Yeah. you
we
know,
have now, but we need to move them.
And she had told me that, this came down from the federal highway. So they got a report from the feds. That's why they came out here and they looked at that. And that's why they got the directive to add another one. So,
Okay.
so that's what that's, like I said, like I said, that's something that it's a process in order to go ahead and get that changed. And, that wasn't, not to sound, but it wasn't part of our scope as far as laying that out for the roadway. So.
While John's here, does the council have any questions for him? Anything else that you wanted to add, John?
No, that was it. Like I said, we fully understand in regards to ADA requirements. Like I said, we stated it within the guidelines. We had it within the draft ordinance that we prepared. So we're well aware that that's something that needs to be addressed with implementation of any of this work.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Any other discussion from the council? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Yes. Thanks, everyone.
No, his H2 is covered now.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is C3. This is ordinance 2023-6, Chapter 11, to the fees and charges in Section 11-1. And this is to amend the beach fees. This is first reading.
I move that this be considered first reading.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim. This constitutes first reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is D1. This is Susan Narone from the Bristol 4th of July Committee. This is a request for a one-day dancing and entertainment license for the block party dance located at the Town Common on June 17th from 6 to 10 p.m.
Based on the recommendations, I move that we approve it.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is D2. This is Paula Ferreira from the Benjamin Church Manor Tenants Association, and this is a request for an annual senior citizens bingo license.
Based on the recommendations, I move that we approve it.
Second.
There's a motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to approve. Discussion. I understand Paula's here. Paula? Paula, did you want a 30-second commercial on your event?
Basically, how we would start out is just after our monthly meeting, which is the second Tuesday of the month, we would end up having other dates besides that going forward. But at least that to start off.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D3. This is Adam O'Brien from O'Brien and Bruff, 500 Wood Street, Unit 112. This is a request for a dancing and entertainment license.
I make a motion that we approve it with a 6-month review.
Second.
There's a motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve with a 6-month review. I understand. Is Adam, you here? This is your 30-second commercial, Adam. Didn't know you were going to do it, did you?
Is this a new,
We'll just have you come up to
a
the.
new establishment?
Come right up to the,
podium.
Is it new?
state your name and address for the record.
My name is Adam O'Brien. My address is 52 Clipper Way, Bristol, Rhode Island.
So far, you're doing a great job. So tell us about,
Yeah.
you're asking for dancing and entertainment license. Tell us what it's for and also take a couple of seconds and explain your business too.
Sure. So we own a distillery at 500 Wood Street, part of Unity Park. We're very small. We produce whiskey and we have a tasting room.
What time do you close?
Okay, bro, yeah.
Varies per night.
Tasting time.
He didn't bring samples?
Not tonight, maybe next time. But we're hoping to have jazz nights throughout the year. And so probably once a month, we would have a small trio join us.
Our first one is April 7th.
Thanks, Natalie. That's my wife, Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
And I would encourage everybody here to come by and say hello.
All right.
I'm
Thank
kind
you.
of concerned. We have a bingo night now, jazz night. This is just, this is too much. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D4. This is Jordan Sawyer doing business as Brick Pizza Company, 500 Wood Street. This is a 6-month review for the license to extend the hours of the liquor sales.
Based on all the good recommendations, I move that we go forward with it, with
Second.
the approval.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Aaron to approve it was a 6-month review on it.
Yep.
Discussion. Jordan, did you want to add anything?
I just wanted to thank the council and the people of Bristol for giving me the opportunity to operate in town. I like to think that not only become an asset to the town, not just in a monetary tax revenue sense, but as an employer and a staple in town. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Excellent.
So Jordan, I told you this last time that you were here. You run an outstanding business. You're not alone with running an outstanding business. The special on Saturday night was outstanding. My wife liked it a lot. Thank you. We were there, but no.
There's a couple of us.
Thank you very much.
No, seriously, you do a great job. And let's say it one more time. You're not alone with doing a great job, but you certainly do a great job. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I think no noise complaints or anything like that too. So
Correct.
it's
Chief, you
important to point
concur?
that out.
Outstanding.
All
I
right.
have just one question to clarify, and I did ask Jordan this. Like, right now, you're open till 12. Is that because we gave you
Till
one, but you're closing at 12, or
We gave 12.
we gave 12? Because everything on here says 1. And that's where that's why I was getting confused. That's why I asked you if it was.
That was because the original request was to the 12, to the 1 a.m.,
Right.
but then the council changed the ordinance from
Right.
11 p.m. to 12 a.m.
12.
So
Right.
that's for the 6-month review. I just carried over his original application. But there's also minutes there saying that the
Right,
council
right.
approved only till the midnight.
Because it was just like back and forth between the times. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure, because 12 is okay, but I didn't really support the 1.
Any other discussion?
How's things running overall? Good with the
Everything's great.
People here.
We're ramping up for summer.
super?
Right.
Excited.
Good. Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D5. This is Alicio Castro from the Bristol Sports Club, 417 Wood Street. This is a request for a one-day dancing and entertainment license for the Diamond Anniversary Dinner to be held on April 15th from 6 to 11 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, I have to abstain.
Based on all the positive recommendations, make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Aaron to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
That was quick.
No influencer.
Good.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D6. This is Kyle Mishad from 12 Guns Brewing, 549 Medicom Avenue. This is a request for dancing and entertainment license.
Based on all the positive recommendations, make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion?
Can I just
Hearing-
make the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to make a comment about the dancing and entertainment licenses.
You beat
If
me.
you've been here for a while, you know that I'm a little crazed by these. And the state only has one license. So when the gentleman just a few weeks ago said once a month he was going to have a jazz trio. That is the same license that you would have a rock band every single night. There's no differentiation at the state level that we have asked to address. It just hasn't ever happened to liquor license where you have like your beer and wine license and you have your different types. So when you see all of these, it can make you, I think it can make us really nervous sometimes, but they're not all going to be, really loud. I mean, you want to have a harpist at your brunch, you need the same license as if you're going to have, a rock band. And that is, I think, something that needs to be addressed at the legislative level. I haven't really talked about this in a while, but I have talked about it in the past many times, and it just absolutely drives me crazy.
it's not just this town, it's all towns.
Right.
We have a sledgehammer to hang a picture.
Right.
It's doesn't matter what it is. So it's, but, so
I
it
think it's
does need to
important
get
that people
changed.
understand that because.
It
when
is.
they
It's
keep
a good
hearing,
point.
Like, we keep hearing, oh, dancing entertainment. And it makes it sound like something like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But it doesn't mean that it's like that big disastrous, potentially loud kind of thing.
Thanks for sharing.
I hear your concern, I really do. And, but now, with the police department that we have, I'm sure they will keep us informed, if this becomes an issue, so that we'll be aware of going forward, what action we may need to take. But I hear you.
Oh, yeah. I'm not
You know.
concerned about that aspect. I'm concerned that somewhere along the line, the legislature makes the, comes up with different classifications for licenses. Or, if you're just gonna have an acoustical guitar once a month at brunch, you don't really need to come and get a license, that type of thing. I just think it needs to be further defined, but it's a totally state issue and it's not up to us to be able to define that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D7. This is the Bristol Merchant Association. This is a request for one-day dancing and entertainment licenses per the 2023 event schedule.
I make a motion that we approve it, and I see that we have a very busy schedule, but looking forward to the activities.
Starting in a
Second.
couple of weeks.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve. Any discussion?
I think the first thing that is coming up in like just a couple of weeks, April 15th,
Mhm.
Saturday, is the State Street Spring Fair.
Yep.
So that is just around the corner, really.
Yeah,
Like
I
a couple of
know.
weeks away from.
It's gone
from
fast.
this weekend.
I love it that there's a whole collection of events that are
Right.
going through and they come before us and my kids love going to those events. They bring their scooters down there. State Street shut down so they can
Yeah.
scoot in between traffic all the time. So
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is E1. This is Vachi Avedisian of Classic Pizza and Grill, 349 Medicom Avenue. This is the relinquishing of the Class B limited liquor license. And this was part of their ordinance C1 that was passed this evening.
So what do we really?
Mike, steps or Madam Clerk,
Your
what's the motion?
To unanimously relinquish the Class B liquor license for Classic Pizza.
Accept the relinquishment? Boy, that's really hard to say.
Yeah, That's gonna be a first.
I motion.
You
I
so
move.
moved?
You
Yeah,
moved?
thank you.
Outstanding. Move that.
Move
There you
that.
go, yeah.
Is there a second?
second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Aaron to accept the relinquishment. I won't say that again. Any other discussion?
don't-
Just very brief, we certainly appreciate, the fact that he is relinquishing it so that we may apply elsewhere, to some other business and make them along that we see fit.
We don't get many of those.
Nope.
No,
It's
no.
true.
No, it's-
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is E2. This is the cesspool license renewals for the 2023-2024.
Motion to approve as stated.
Second. Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion?
I just can help
There's
but to.
discussion.
Oh, geez.
I
Seriously?
wasn't expecting
I don't know how deep we want to go. No, pass on.
Oh, no discussion. Okay, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Bye.
Thank you. It's too easy.
The next item on the agenda is E3. This is the tattooing license renewals, which also
Oh,
include
no.
the permanent tattooing licenses for 23-24.
Based on all the positive recommendations, make a motion to approve. and-
Second.
So motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Feels appropriate that we should mention Halsey.
I was just gonna say, I was like, wait a minute,
Probably
wait,
should vote no, just in-
Chairman, I was just waiting for, I was like,
It
he's
had
gonna
to.
mention Halsey,
Had to.
definitely, yeah.
You don't know,
yeah, you
Halsey
gotta go
was
for it.
vehemently opposed to all of these. So
So since I'm the elder, can I vote against it? No.
hearing no, well, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, Halsey.
The next item on the agenda is F3. This is Susan Arone from the Bristol 4th of July Committee. This is a request for permission to use the town common basketball courts and the gazebo for the block
Can you-
party
I think
dance.
we,
We
Did
skipped
we-
F1.
F1.
No,
We
We
yeah,
did?
yeah.
Hang on,
I
making
appreciate-
sure everybody's paying attention.
Yeah.
Hang on.
I don't think Mrs. Game would be happy. about that.
F2, sorry. Oh,
F1,
we missed
no,
a lot. I
F1.
missed the whole
F1,
page,
yeah.
sorry.
It's all right.
F1, Lita A. Kane from 109 Constitution Street. This is a request for an accessible parking space, second reading.
I move that we approve it.
Second,
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve. Any discussion?
Just very quickly, Ms. Game be aware of that, the fact that because she's got a placard, that it's open to, the spot is open to anyone who has a placard, I should say. So sometimes folks think, it's their designated spot.
Good point.
good point, yeah.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
So Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is F2. This is the Bristol Merchant Association, and this is the request for the approval of event schedule for 2023.
Yep, more events. Good to hear. Based on all the positive recommendations, make a motion to approve.
Second,
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Anybody here from Bristol Merchant Association want a 30-second commercial?
Yay.
Oh, and Brenda.
20-second
Is that
commercial?
Brenda?
50, that's it, done.
Good evening.
Council, Zach Rivers, 1 State Street, Bristol.
Welcome.
So first event, as Tim said, when you stated was April 15th 's coming up. Last year, the events went very well. We put a lot more effort in. We did a few extra or 2 extra events last year. Seemed to be received well. Said a lot of families like it. The town, people from town like it. We're also trying to really revitalize, our fall events as well. So we
Good.
just really appreciate the support of everybody, support of the events, and continue to looking forward to working on them.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Zach.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is F3, Susan Nerone from the Bristol 4th of July Committee. This is the request for permission to use the town common basketball courts and the gazebo for the block party dance on June 17th from 6 to 10.
I make a motion to approve it based on the recommendations.
Second,
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is F4. We have Stephen Elmesian, the chairman from the Armenian National Committee of Rhode Island. And this is a request to fly the Armenian flag on April 24th.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G1. This is the Recreation Board. This is one term set to expire March 2026 and one term set to expire April 2026. And we have Crystal Pacheco with not seeking reappointment.
Mr. Chairman,